City Talks with Reuben Abati.
City Talks with Reuben Abati here on City 105.1 FM. And as I pointed out earlier, we'll be discussing the Ikoyi Building Collapse, where there was a fraudulent slip there. I was reading on my phone before I took that break a statement by the Vice President of Nigeria indicating that he has nothing to do with that particular building or the land or the development. The name of the developer correctly is Femi Oshibono, and his body was discovered after 4 days of scraping through the rubble. The vice president's name had been associated with it as the owner of the land, and he had come out publicly to say, look, he has nothing to do with this. So his political opponents or mischief makers should not associate the name of Professor Femi Oshibanjo with this particular incident. And before then, of course, the chairman of Elizade Group, Chief Adeojo, had also come forward to say no, he was not and is not the owner of the land. So many issues involved in this particular matter. But we're hoping that when the chairman of the Real Estate Development Association of Nigeria Lagos State Chapter joins us, we'll be able to look at all of these issues, including, what possibly went wrong, what lessons can we learn, what can we do going forward, what should the state government do, should the state government be blamed, is there regulatory failure, and in terms of compensation, is there room for compensation, and where does this leave the families that are involved, and also other stakeholders who are concerned. Well, right now I have, our guest, Dr. Bamidele Onolaja, stepping into the studio. Well, I'll give him just 1 minute to settle down, and then the program will start. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Bamidele Onolaja. I've been introducing you and trying to clarify a mix-up. Clearly, that this is not about the vice president, this is not about Chief Adeojo, but it's about real estate development, it's about property development, and it is sad that we have this tragedy that is on our hands. Our heart goes out to all the affected families, all the affected stakeholders, because every life matters. This kind of tragedy should not happen. Why should such a tragedy not happen? This is not the first time, but it happens again and again. So how do we solve the problem? What lessons should we learn? We can't have a better person than the chairman of the Real Estate Development Association of Nigeria, Lagos State Chapter, Dr. Bamidele Onolaja. Dr. Onolaja, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so very much, sir. It's my pleasure and honor to be with an erudite journalist with you, sir. It's nice. I'm happy to be with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm also excited to have you here with me in the studio.
Thank you, ssir.
Well, you are a developer yourself. You are into real estate. You run a group called Revolution Plus Group, and you develop property. Now we have had this incident in Lagos, where a 21-story building collapsed like a pack of cards. I've seen a lot out there. People say, oh, maybe it's the foundation, maybe it's the quality of the blocks, maybe it's the quality of the iron that was used. Okay, this is your own area. What exactly do you suspect happened? The government has set up a judicial panel of inquiry, a tribunal of inquiry. But as someone in the business, looking at the stories, following the story the whole week, what do you think could have happened?
Thank you so very much. Firstly, let me render my condolences, first of all, on behalf of the chairman and president and council of REDAN, Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, Alhaji Aliyu Wamako, our Southwest chairman, Mr. Debo Adejana, and also my humble self, Bamidele Onolaja, as the chairman of REDAN Lagos. It's so sad because this is a sad time and a sad day and a sad week in real estate business. You know, what has happened is not only going to affect real estate, but it dampened the morale of the investors, the wood buyers, and everybody involved in real estate. I personally am very sad about it. I visited the site several times, and I saw the momentum waste of lives and investment. One thing about such occurrence, you know, as a developer also, I cannot say possibly I want to build a property of a 21-story building just for it to collapse and waste and lose my life in the process. So nobody will plan for that. So I'm very sure Femi Fosco, the MD of Fosco, wasn't planning that the property should come down, collapse on him and all the other staffs. So many people that lost their life. That wasn't his plan at all. But it has happened. And in building and construction, there are processes from the professionals. Let me start from the professionals first of all. Now, when you want to build such a gigantic project, it has, you know, that the one that collapsed is 21. There's another unit, another block that is 15. There's another block that is 16. So there are 3 blocks of those high rises, but the only one that came down is that 21 units for now. So when you want to do such a project, there are processes. First of all, start with your design being done by an architect. So you give such project. You don't give such a project to Baba Morifa, Baba Risikatu somewhere on the road, because it's huge. It's a multi-billion naira project. You definitely want to give it to experts. So in this case, I want to assume that Femi already gave this project to experts as an architect and structural engineers. These are the people that will recommend the irons, the piling to be done, because for such a project to have gone to high-rise, it must be piled properly. There must be piling. We go deep down into the foundation, and being Lagos being what it is, it's very difficult, almost impossible to build such a 21-story building without piling. So you must pile it and make sure that you go deep down. So the structural engineers and the architect and everybody involved need to be questioned first of all, need to be called. There's a project manager for that project, I want to assume, and I'm very sure there's a project manager who coordinates even also the M&E, the mechanical and electrical consultant on that project. So there's a project manager who project manage such a huge project. So I think everybody, all the professionals involved, now that Femi is gone, so it's very impossible for us to be asking him questions. So they should go to his office, bring out the books, get his staffs, bring who and do this project. Who are the professionals? I want to start with the professionals first before I even go to the government regulatory authority. Because the professionals, as a professional, I know if a project is to take an 18 rod and I'm recommending 12, there's a fundamental problem. That means there's no way such a project will not come down. If I'm to do 18 pile section, 18 point piling, and I'm recommending 10, there's no way such a project will not come down, no matter what the regulatory authority does or the government does to regulate it. Because number one, if the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? So it goes down automatically. So it's so sad that I want to recommend first of all that the professionals should be called to book, the project manager, the architect, the structural engineer especially, everybody, the M&E, everybody involved in that project, they should be called. The government now has set up an inquiry, which I'm very sure the inquiry commission will call all those professionals. Come and tell us exactly. Bring your books. Let's see what you recommended for this 21 story that made it came down.
Well, Dr. Onolaja, I see that you concerned about the performance of the professionals involved in the project. But many Nigerians have been blaming the state government. They say that what we may be dealing with is the failure of regulation. You will recall that this particular project was halted between July and November 2021 for 4 months. But despite that, there was activity going on. Where were the regulators? There was also the issue about the approval. The discrepancy between the Ikoyi office of the Department of Physical Planning giving approval for a certain number of floors and the head office in Alausa giving a different kind of approval, which resulted in that discrepancy in the testimony by the Deputy Governor and the Director of the Lagos State Building Control Agency, who has now been suspended. Now, all of these issues, is the government guilty as charged?
Thank you so very much. There are processes in approvals. I've gotten so many approvals from the government. I've gotten some of the sites locked up and opened eventually. So it's for government, from the reliable information I got, that particular building that came down was approved for 21 story, not 15 or not 16 as we are saying.
Really? You are very sure about that?
Yes, that's the information I got, confirmed. So if it's been approved for 21 story, you cannot take out the role of the agency, LabSCA or material testing. In this case, I think the material testing agency of the Lagos State government is one that even need to be called to question. And so, okay, now for such structure, you are to test the material, test its concrete mix, test the iron, test how strong are they. Does it meet the requirements submitted by this developer? And if it does not, you change it. And also the supervisory role, if they lock a particular construction site, that doesn't mean the government will not open it or cannot open it. So that means they are telling you as a developer, you are not doing the right thing. So maybe after they locked it and the developer has submitted record, they locked it for 4 months. I'm sure within the 4 months, maybe there are some documents or payment the government is asking from him, and he has. So I want to assume that he has submitted such the inquiry that the government is wanted from him. So if he has submitted, then he's free to go back to site. And if after going back to site, the government failed to consistently, because as a government, you are also the regulatory authority, you are also expected to go there periodically to check, are you following what we approved? Because the government expected you to follow the approval they gave you. They cannot give you 16 floor and you are doing 21 floor, or they cannot give you 20 floor and you are doing 30 floors. That's against the rules.
Well, Dr. Onolaja, I've heard some people saying this is a case of sabotage, or that this is an act of God. That sometimes in the property development process, certain things cannot be explained. Well, you have been in this business for decades. Do acts of God happen? Is there something you can say with regard to sabotage? Do you suspect that there's some kind of sabotage involved in this regard?
Thank you so very much, Doctor. In any accident, is two ways. Any accident is either natural or man-made. We cannot rule out the natural occurrence of this one, which is very slim, according to my experience and observation in this particular case, because the ground, what can make such thing natural is if there is a ground shift. If there's a ground shift, like a minor earthquake or something, that means the old three structures and the structures surrounding it, even already living it, will come down. But in this case, I suspect a lot of human error. Human error, it might be sabotage. You cannot rule out sabotage, but human error from on the part of the foundation construction from the beginning to the end at which that project was at I was told, and I heard reliably, that the developer was at the 18th floor. And that wasn't his first time going there. He's been going there almost every time. And that was his first construction project in Lagos. That wasn't his first construction project. He has built several projects, even in London and in South Africa. So what went wrong here? So there's a bit of human error and there might be sabotage. But, I don't want to, because in construction, there are basic things you go through. So human error, if there are human error, that means the designs and everything wasn't done properly. I was looking at the way the whole thing collapsed like a pack of cards. And I'm thinking to myself, what happened to the concrete mix? Because you look at it, it looks like sand. Maybe something wasn't done properly on the supervisory role of the project manager and everybody involved. Also the part of the government. Because we expect that whoever the agency that is involved in such ought to be going there periodically. If you go there every 2 weeks or every week, you have suspected, you have noticed and stopped the construction and locked the place again for another 6 months.
Okay, Dr. Onolaja, so what happens now? Lives have been lost. About 40 lives have been lost. 9 persons were lucky to have escaped. The story all round is very tragic. Now, in situations like this, can we rely on insurance? Can we talk about compensation for the affected families? You recall that before now, there was the case of Lekki Home Gardens, where certain persons, about over 30 of them, yes, lost their lives. And then there was litigation, there was compensation. Do you think that there's even anything that the affected families can hold on to? And even the injured, the 9 persons who managed to escape.
What I love the government, those of the government that have done so far, they are very proactive. I can tell you, I beg to anybody to say, the Lagos State government that we have presently is one of the most proactive government in any state of the federation. Give it to Mr. Governor. Immediately such a thing happened, he has gone there 3 times to visit the site. He has gone to the hospital, the deputy governors, everybody have been there. So the government on their part are doing their best. So in this case, unfortunately, the developer died with it. In the case of Lekki Garden, Richard is alive. Nothing happened to him. So the government could pull him, sue him. The people that lost their life also could sue him because there was somebody to sue. Because in Nigeria, a limited liability company, if not well structured, is being run like a one-man business. So once the visionary of any project dies, the project dies. So in this case, unfortunately, Femi is gone. So who do we hold? Nobody to hold, sir. Unless the government can say, okay, let's see what we can do to help the people that lost their life, because they are young people. I heard there are coppers, people that just started working, very young people that lost their life in the disaster. So I think the government can come up now after this investigation to first of all uncover the cause of this disaster. It must be done without no fear or favor of anybody. And we in Redan Real Estate Developer Association, we are so interested in it to know what causes it so that such thing can be avoided. And another thing we do, sir, is that in our association as Redan, we train our members, we tell them, and we have collaboration with the government strongly. In July this year, we had a very strong collaboration with the Ministry of Physical Planning. Even the suspended GM of LAPSCA, Architect Bola Oki, was there with the Commissioner for Physical Planning, where we trained every Redan members. So I want to use the opportunity that all the developers in Lagos should come together under the Redan umbrella. It's easier for the government to deal with a body, channel information through a body, and get things done through the body. It's easier.
The Real Estate Development Association of Nigeria, Lagos chapter, already has over 5,000 members, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Was Femi Oshibono, the managing director of Fourscore Properties Limited, a member of your organization? How did you know him personally? What kind of man was he?
Unfortunately, he's not a member of Redan. We don't have we don't have him on our record, but he's a friend. Because number one, I tell most of the developers that I know personally, some of them are big boys. They do big projects in Ikoyi, Lekki, everywhere. But they just think, why should I join Redland? Why should I belong to an association? I keep telling them, such a day like this will come. If it's not a house that is collapsing, we need Redland for something with the government. And also, the government is also willing to work closely with an association. It makes the job easier. So Femi, first call, I don't know him too close, but from the information I got from so many of my friends that knows him personally, he's a very good guy.
Okay, well, already I was going to open up the lines, but someone is already on WhatsApp, a gentleman called Adegboyega Adedeji, and he's asking this question, as I think will be of interest to you. He says that his question for you is, why do we have sudden real estate managers springing up, building empty and unoccupied luxurious houses on the island with no experience or antecedents in real estate management? And what's your association doing about that?
Thank you so very much. It is very important, almost impossible for you to build a luxurious, like an high-rise, without experience. Even if you have the money, you have to call all the experts together to build. You must have requisite a bit of experience. And if they're unoccupied, there are so many properties, not only in Lagos, all over the nation because of COVID. Business crumbled. I know how many businesses, real estate businesses, that could not even pay their salaries. So it's not about Lagos alone, it's not about Island. Everything is affected because COVID has eaten deep into so many businesses. So if anybody have money, you think you want to do real estate business, that's why I keep telling people you need the requisite training as a real estate investor. If you want to invest your money into real estate as a developer, you want to build. Don't just say because I have the money, you go into it. But from Femi first call antecedent, this is not his first project. So you cannot say because he have money, just jump into it. This is somebody that built the first high-rise in London as a black man. And he also did in South Africa, successful projects. He also did in Lagos. This is not the first project. So it's not that maybe he just had money suddenly and he jumped into it and wanted to build. He wanted a legacy for himself, and also so that he can support the massive housing deficit in Nigeria. It's massive. So when you see, we have so many real estate developers now coming up because the housing deficit in Nigeria is massive. It's over 18 million, and it is not ready to come down until all of us, so many of us, put our money together, join with the government to reduce housing deficit.
Okay, the pattern in Lagos now is for wannabes on the mainland, or the nouveau rich in any part of Lagos or elsewhere in the country, to say that they want to own a flat on the island, Victoria Island, Ikoyi, and beyond.
Lekki.
Lekki, Osapa, London, and all of that. And everybody is looking for money. Let me buy a flat so that I can belong. Now, this project that failed, that collapsed, falls into that category. 21, story building with many apartments. Some people are even paid up, looking forward to living in Ikoyi, in highbrow Gerrard Road. What is the likely impact of what has happened now on real estate development in that axis of town? Do you think it's bad for business, since this is your business?
It's very bad for business, extremely. That particular project is not for wannabes. It's for the bourgeoisies, people that have money, because that is the eyebrow of Ikoyi, and a project, a flat there, is going for as high as almost 250 million. So you cannot...
Naira. 250 million naira.
Yes.
That's cheap. That's okay.
For wannabe, somebody that lives on the mainland,
okay,
that wants to move to the island, I'm sure you not want to go and invest 250 million on the island.
Okay.
But if you are talking of, I want to live in a flat in Lekki, maybe 45 million, 35 million, or 50 million, you can still get a flat.
Okay.
But when you are investing such 250 million, for instance, in Ikoyi, that's for the big boys. An average Nigerian cannot afford that. So It's important because Lagos is divided into two, is like urban and Kinikon. Everybody wants to leave the mainland and go to the island, which is good investment. People want to invest on the island because if you look at it, island had more purchasing power. People that can afford what you are building lives on the island. So for our station like us, what we are encouraging is, number one, it's bad for business. It has affected, and also so many people are now running away from high-rise. That's the implication. And because the land in Lagos is limited, developers prefer to go high, maybe from 10 floors to 15 to 20, so that you can maximize the land. The land in Lagos is our oil. That's the oil. If you listen to the Mr. Governor, he will tell you the land we have in Lagos is our oil, so we have to properly manage. So that's why you see the government of Lagos State, they give approval once everything is done properly to high-rises, because the land is not cheap. The higher you go as a developer, the more you maximize your profit. So it is affecting business. This building collapse has affected so many business in the last 1 week up to today. Everybody is staying away from real estate for now, until the whole thing is done and everything. But you can't stay away from real estate for long, because you have to live in a house. You can't sleep on the streets. So you have to invest more in real estate. This is the best time to invest in real estate, but be careful with whom you are investing with.
Well, you raised a question earlier. You talked about the project manager. You asked a question, who is the project manager in charge? Who are the professionals in charge? Really, in front of that building, there was a signage. And the Lagos State chairman of the Institute of Town Planners has had cause to express concern that, look, some of those people whose names appeared on the signage, they were just like the same one person, and there was no proper differentiation in terms of responsibilities. Okay, the question to ask is, what is the role of the professional bodies in this regard? Because, look, cynics say this will happen again. It has happened before. This will not be the end. So what exactly do these professional bodies do? Okay, don't let me start with Red Hand so that I'm not putting you on the spot. But there's Koren, there's
Akon.
That's the Institute of Architects, right?
Architects, yes.
Yeah, so there are other groups that are involved in this. Why do they run bodies whose members are not necessarily helping society?
Thank you so very much. Now, let me start from the NNITP, that's Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. I think I heard the comment of the chairman, who is also the chairman of the commission that the governor set up, is the chairman to find what happened to this.
Okay, you are referring to Tony Anyinde?
Yes.
That's his name.
That's his name. So I think I want to disagree with him a bit by saying everybody's list on that name is same as one person. Because number one, on that particular building, there will be structural engineer. It cannot be one person. There's M&E, the person in charge of mechanical and electrical, because there's lift, there's so many electrical that was done. It cannot be one person. One person cannot be a structural engineer and at the same time be an M&E person. Then the architect, the same person cannot be an architect. So I think the property, the failure of the professionals, that's why when I started my comment, I said the first thing the government needs to do is to go after the professionals that did the designs and did everything on this project. You go after them, including the project manager who coordinates everything, and ask them questions. They should bring out their books. What happened? And Koren, which is the council that corrects engineering in Nigeria, should be able to call those people to books and ask questions. Akon too, the Architect Council, should be able to call those people to and ask questions. What actually happened? Apart from the government, they should set up their own panel of inquiry, because this is an indictment on the part of those professional bodies. They have failed for such a thing to happen. So what are your members doing that they allow such thing? Your designs are not properly done, though you submitted to the government and the government approved it, then suddenly you went to site and it was not properly followed. So the professionals and on the part of the government, everybody needs to be called to question. Why the governor set up an inquiry? they call the professional, they also call in the government agency in charge of, and in this case, sir, I think the material testing agency of the Lagos State government need to be questioned.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw this open, in a few minutes, and we'll see how we can stretch the program for some additional minutes. Now, Adeboyega Adedeji is back here again on WhatsApp. He's asking you, Chairman Redan Lagos State, he says, is it proper and right for someone that is not a member of the Real Estate Development Union to build 21 stories? Shouldn't the Lagos State government insist that such a person is a member before approving the project? Is this a case of fatherism? Well, I don't know what you do in Redan, but he's saying that for certain kinds of projects, there must be some kind of professional endorsement.
Thank you so very much. You are very, very correct. It's very right. That question is germane. Because number one, in Lagos, so many developers springing up and down. They refuse to join Redan, so many of them. And we cannot force them until there's a law from the government. And there's a support 100% from Mr. Governor and also the National House of Assembly that said, if you are not a Redan member, you cannot build, not even a certain, you cannot even develop anything in Lagos. So,
but the question is, how effective is your association? What does your association do? How can you possibly make any difference? That, I think, those, I think, are the questions.
Yeah, definitely. Our association would make so much difference because, number one, we know the address, our offices, we know our members' project. We have an enforcement team that goes around to check our members' projects. I can tell you authoritatively, if Femi Oshibono or Fosco is a member of Redan, I personally would have visited that project with my team to see what is going on, because naturally, you will become a friend. We will see what is going on. The enforcement team will go there. So anybody builds in Lagos, and it's not a matter we are a Redan or no. Anybody, once you have money, you build, and that there must be a regulation that says if you are not a member of so body, you cannot build. There are professional bodies like Akon, like Koren. So we need to, the government need to bring all of us together to form a very strong body for monitoring in Lagos, construction in Lagos. There should be a body from the government. If the governor doesn't want to do it like Redan alone, bring Redan with some other professionals, with structural engineers, with ACON, with NNITP. We form a strong body, an enforcement team to complement what the governor is doing. The government is doing so much in Lagos. Very proactive government. But, they cannot do it alone. Even in the citizenry that saboteurs. So you need to come closer, work closely with this organization called Redan. And we can help you. Like I said, we have over 5,000 members. So with 5,000 members, you can get your information disseminated very fast. Okay. Anybody that doesn't, we can be corrected.
Okay. At this point, I still have two questions for you. First, what lessons can we learn? Second, what's your assessment of the response by the Lagos State government? Whether you think it's adequate enough, whether it's adequate, and whether there are additional steps that the Lagos State government will still need to take. But before then, let's throw the lines open. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can join us via phone 0700-1051-1051. You can also join us like Adeboyega Adedeji on WhatsApp 090-9916-4403. Oh, okay. Someone is already on the line. Please go ahead. Your name, your location.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon.
It's Obi Emmanuel Iheme. I'm calling you from Ikoyi.
Okay, Obi Emmanuel from Ikoyi. Please go ahead.
I want to object to the submission of the guest in the studio, who says that the Lagos State government seems to be the most proactive in the whole nation. I think, quite frankly, that assertion is not true. I think it should talk rather on the fact that the planning of projects around Lagos is very, very poor. A situation where we jump packed, everybody just built indiscriminately in Lagos. That is one of the reasons why people were not rescued on time, because there are some equipment that was brought into the area, but there was no way to pass them through to rescue people. So on that ground, he couldn't have said that the movement was or seemed to be more proactive across Nigeria. That's very wrong. I think, quite frankly, now we should be looking at town planning, a situation where everybody don't just come and build. That is the whole essence of having a government. Everybody seems to be building in Nigeria. And you provide security, you provide water, you provide light and all that. I think it's something we should look into critically. Good afternoon.
Okay, well, Dr. Onolaja, you had that. He says you can make excuses to the state government.
He's entitled to his own opinion. I'm a practitioner. I'm not making any excuse for the state government. Wherever the government has erred, I say it, I'm a very blunt person. So what I mean by it, okay, Ikoyi, where the incident happened, for instance, is a luxurious living area. It's a developed area. It's not a developing area. It's fully built up area. So Ikoyi has a master plan, which is being followed up to now. I have some of the books of all the master plans, local government by local government of Lagos, which I've studied. The master plan of Ikoyi cannot be changed. It's fully booked. Where the incident happened, you cannot just say because there's a disaster happened, people cannot access, because there's a main road, which one road, and the mistake has been done from the beginning when Lagos State was being formed, not now, because the roads are so narrow, they are not so big. For a developed area like that, there should be roads everywhere. But that cannot be corrected now because the place is developed. So what the government did was to quickly come and into rescue through the Lasema and Nema. Naturally, the whole place was, because I live around that area, the whole place was jam-packed, nowhere to go. Which he has a point in that area.
Doctor, you live among them.
No, I'm not saying I live. I don't live around. I live on the island. So I live on the island.
I'm just pulling your legs. Please
I live on the island. So I know exactly what happened on the island where the incident happened. I know. So most of the island, look at VI, Ikoyi, and Lekki. Most of the development there, they are not newly planned estates. They are not new towns. But if you are going towards the Bejuleki, there are still opportunity for the government to improve on Lagos planning in the Bejuleki area. But when you come to Ikoyi, it's a developed town. So when such incidents happen, the only thing any rescuer could do is to wriggle his car among and try and save people. So I'm not speaking for the government at all. They once, as a developer myself, I'm so sad and unhappy that such a thing is happening. And all I'm saying is that the government could do better, and they acted proactively by coming quickly. The governor has been there 3 or 4 times. So it has happened. The government needs to be more proactive next time so that such thing can now. The agencies of government, be it LABSCA, material testing, or physical planning, Ministry of Physical Planning, need to be more proactive so that we can avoid such occurrence in the future. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, I get your point, Dr. Onolaja. I mean, sometimes I pity the governor of Lagos State, whether, he's not been destined to keep managing crisis, from COVID-19 to collapse buildings, one after the other. But I guess the good point that you have made is that each time these incidents occur, he stands up.
He stands up,
and,
yes.
He stands to be counted, and he's been on the side of the people. And I think that's commendable. But we have another caller on the line. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Reuben. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, please, can I remain anonymous on this matter?
Okay, no problem. You can be in Nigeria anonymous. Although if you flip that, part of the problem is that many of the people that died at that 21-story building, they are classified as Nigeria anonymous. No manifest. As the governor pointed out, nobody even knows, as at this moment, who most of those persons are. Nobody should be anonymous in Nigeria. but you have the right to choose to be anonymous on this program. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Reuben. Reuben, I want to tell the truth of the matter. I'm a civil structural engineer. When things like this happen, there will be a lot of conversations out there. In most cases, if we are not careful, we give out misleading information, especially on the radio like this one. Now, I want to talk about the collapse of this 21-story building. We noticed that collapse was a total collapse. In other words, it's a pancake collapse when everything comes down stacked with good precision. If we see, it was stacked. Now, let us put the record straight. The fundamental error here is strictly structural engineering. It's not an accident. Okay? It's not the purview of an architect. The duty of an architect in building is the aesthetics. Okay? How conducive the building will be at the end of the day. They are the brains behind the design and the habitability of that building at the end of the day. But when it comes to the skeleton of that structure, which in this case, the foundation, the beams, the columns, that is strictly the duty of a structural engineer. Now, why am I saying this? Because what will happen, a lot of bodies will come up and claim responsibility, and claim relevance. In this case, what happened there was not an accident. I must then put that straight. It was a structural engineering error. Okay, it could be a result of the design, the foundation design, the overall design as a whole, or maybe the material, the construction material. Okay. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this if this fundamental issue is not checked, this thing will likely occur again, and we keep repeating these narratives. Okay. Now, we mentioned some bodies like the Korean, the NSC, and the ACON. Yes, those guys have a role to play. I am reluctant to actually blame the authority, so they cannot be exonerated. But you cannot tell me to wait for a road safety to ask me to put on my seatbelt. My safety is my responsibility. So now these bodies, the Korean, they must ensure that those you give the stamp to have the competency to carry out whatever design they are doing. Now, if this happens, the first thing is that let us start from the basics, the center of gravity of this matter, which is how was this thing designed? What was the geotechnical investigation carried out? Because the philosophy of design is such that it is very difficult for building to collapse to fire because of a lot of factors of safety you put into play. So if something like that happens, I couldn't sleep because I'm very passionate about this. So I don't want to take your time for too long. I just want to let us know that the fundamental issue here is structural issues, error, either by design, maybe construction or whatever. Let us tackle this thing from that angle, please. Let us relax this association and all this. We know what was happening there. Let's tackle the issue. What happened? How was it designed? Who carried out the design and all that, please? Thank you so much.
Much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Exactly. You may have refused to disclose your identity, but the issue you raised, very pertinent. Sir.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said. What he said is clearly, it shows that the guy exactly knows what he's saying. Because exactly what I said is a structural defect. Structural is, and it cannot only isolate the designer, that's the architect. You cannot say the designer is free. No. So every building structure starts from the architect. He designs, then it goes to the structural engineer. But in this case, because it's a 21-story high-rise, the structural engineer needs to be held highly responsible, and also the project manager very responsible, and ask them questions. Also, I want to talk to the body called Koren and even Akon, because I've seen some Korean members that they cannot even interpret structure. I'm telling you, I give them structure, you interpret, they will be saying nonsense. So and they have this current. That doesn't mean they give everybody their stamp, but they need to be more diligent. Look at the people you are giving your stamp and your seal to. You need to be more professionals and look at the site your members are going. I'm sure that current has an enforcement team. Go there once in a while. What with the government? You understand? So that we can avoid this.
Okay, we'll take more calls and reactions. But if there's no call on the line, okay. Okay, yeah, we have someone here on, this is WhatsApp, right? I'm Emmanuel from Ogun State. Please ask the guest again about the insurance. Is there compensation for the victims?
Thank you so very
Thank
you so very much. I think I explained that earlier. I said yes, there might be compensation if it will be faster if the developer is alive, but unfortunately is dead now. I gave an example of the previous housing collapse, which made sure that developer was meant to compensate the people that lost their lives because he was still alive. But in this case, developer is dead. And in Nigerian business of limited liability, once you are the visionary and you are late because you are not a PLC, it's not a public liability company, it's meant to assume that the project is dead and the company is dead. But be as it may, we have a very responsive government of Lagos. I want to call on the governor to quickly, no matter how small, no matter how little, compensate the dead or the injured people. He's been doing so well by taking care of the bills of the injured people at the general hospital on the island. But beyond that, the government need to give them something, no matter how small, identify the people, compensate their families for this disaster. At least that will put a relieving piece to the family. So the government should do something by compensating even the developer is no more. But the government, because we are all children of the government anyway. So
anyway, you've raised an important point. Are you saying invariably that if the leader of a particular business proposition, the leader of a public limited liability company dies, then the company dies?
If it's a
because this is one of the issues out there. People have been saying, don't they have an accountant? Is there no director of admin? Is there no deputy managing director? Is this Fourscore Properties Limited a one-man business affair? Is it even registered with the CAC? Because if people take their money, they buy property, upscale, up-end, part of the city, uptown, and then at the end of the day, one man who is in charge dies and the money disappears. Who is going to compensate them? Are you saying that in this particular case, once the managing director, the promoter dies, then money has entered the forest, as Yorubas will say?
Well, unfortunately, I think so in this case, because number one, it's not a public liability company, it's a limited liability company. That's a limited. So in first court case, I don't think there's any other director that have access to the account than Femi. Because number one, if you want to compensate, you have to sign from accounts. And there are processes in having access to account when the promoter of the signature of the account dies. There are bank processes. So that's what I'm saying in this case, because most businesses in Nigeria, they said is not an enterprise, is not a one man, but it's a one man business. They run businesses like one man. So once the promoter or the business dies. But there are some few businesses. That's why it's always good as a business person. Now we are all learning to have board members, to have partners, be it your wife or your brother or your sister, to join you in the business. Have access to the account, so that in case anything happens tomorrow, not even for building collapse or anything, you can abruptly die, maybe by sickness, anything, so that your business will not just collapse the way you go. So it's a lesson for all. So in this case, if there's not going to be any compensation, anything, the government is the one that will do this.
Okay, we'll still come
because
back
the
to.
accountant of the company will not have access to the money.
In fact, nobody has even shown up. We'll still talk about these lessons that need to be learned. But before then, we still have a caller on the line. Hello, thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Reuben.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon to your guest.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Darlington speaking.
Go ahead.
If you look at what has been said and the name that has been thrown up, you will know where the problem is coming from. There was a day I was listening on radio. Some people living at Magodo, they came on radio and we are shouting their head off that the wetland where they reserve for sewage and the drainages and all that, that somebody in Lagos has gone there to build and their houses are being flooded. That even the animals that we are supposed to be living in those forest areas is now living in their living rooms. All the monkeys and all that, they are now intruding into their privacy because some people have used bulldozer to sanction it and they are building. They complained and said all sorts of things. Then who is that person? They couldn't mention any name. They couldn't. Now, I listened to Bode George. He too was shouting how all the heritages of Lagos is being pulled down and somebody is busy erecting buildings all over the place in the place of those heritages. Meanwhile, the Lagos State government is talking. A prominent lawyer, vice president of NBA, has a tussle with a property with somebody who is bidding in the land of his client at Bank Anthony. The man was all over. He went to governor's house. The commissioners invited him. When he got to a point, they told him because of the name involved, they will not put their hand there. A lawyer, his own client, he couldn't rescue that property because somebody. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, you see that property, it is greediness. After all, somebody built to the other two, the 15 and the 16. And the man said he has given guarantee that those two they built is okay. And nobody has questioned it. So because some people have already bought 60% of this one, then somebody decided to make more money to the detriment of people's lives and added what was not there before. Look at all the lies that is being told. A whole deputy governor telling us it was for 21. Meanwhile, the man who gave the approval, the BCA man, is telling you they approved 15. So with all these lies, Dr. Reuben, will you ever know the owner of that building? Somebody is forcing somebody. After all, the man involved, I don't think he had the capacity for what he's doing there. So who is that person? Who is that person that has taken over Lagos land? Building everywhere, go to Ikoyi, the people at Ikoyi, they are shouting. All the green areas, they have taken it over, building structures. Yet, you have a governor. He doesn't know what is going on.
Well,
you will never know the truth. Dr. Reuben, as long as some names are being, you will never hear the truth. All this one, we are just talking. Governor cannot sanction anybody. If you could not sanction TB Joshua's property, what would they do again?
Sir,
what would they do?
Well, sir, I think.
Meanwhile, people's lives have been lost.
Well, sir,
people's lives have been lost. All these fire brigades are protecting that committee. If you find out at the end of the day, what will you do?
Well, sir,
Dr. Reuben, can they ever sanction anybody in Lagos State?
Well, hello, sir.
Have you seen the governor of Lagos State say anything to anybody here?
Well, if I may interrupt at this point, I think your point is very well made. But I would like to hear what Dr. Onolaja has to say to that.
Thank you so very much. I understand his anger and grievances because so many lives were lost. So there might be, in property development, there are several structures in property development, it can be a joint venture agreement between one person that owns the land and the person that have the finance. So we don't know the structure that this particular property comes with. Maybe somebody owns the land and Femi owns the money and he wants to develop. But I also want to disagree a bit with him by saying I don't think he has the capacity of what he's doing there. I don't agree. Because number one is proving that he has built in several places before now. And this particular project is over 60% sold out. So, and also, on the part of the government, I think the governor might be listening or his official is listening. It's important they are proactive and the governor can do more. Like I said earlier, the governor of Lagos State is one of the most proactive governors in the country. And I'm not saying without fear or favor. I'm not here to defend him, but that's the truth. Because I'm in the real estate sector. Maybe he pays more attention to real estate sector because, he came from the real estate part. Having been the former director for LSDPC. So he has this soft spot for real estate. That's where everything that happens in real estate is get his attention. So Mr. Governor can do more. We don't expect him to go everywhere, but he has commissioners. The commissioner for physical planning, for instance, Dr. Salako, you see the man working in the midnight. He go to sites in the night, trying to stop on approved buildings, trying to even the suspended gem of LAPSCA. But unfortunately, this has happened. That doesn't mean that we have to exonerate the government, but the government apart, the professionals in this, because number one, the professionals that design this project are the one, because I know the processing in construction. If I bring a very bad foundational base and I start building, even let me go to 30 floor, it will collapse. So that's it. So I understand where it's coming from. He's angry that this has happened and everybody's angry. I'm angry too. And I think we can all do better. Not only the government, even individuals. All of us should come up and watch our backs and do better next time.
Okay, very quickly, there was a question I asked you earlier on as we begin to wind down. What lessons can we learn?
The lessons to be learned is so enormous, it's so plenty. Let me start from this one-man business idea of Nigerians. You see a limited liability company certified by the CAC. When you check on the registration document of CAC, they have so many people, director, MD CEO, but you only see that the MD CEO or the chairman of such company is one driving the thing. So when such thing like this happens, when the man drops dead suddenly, the whole company goes down. That's why I want to advise anybody listening to me and you have a business, involve a partner in your business. Can be your friend, a trusted friend, can be your wife. I run my business with my wife. Revolution Plus is being run with me and my wife. So everybody has his own business model. That's my own business model and it's working perfectly well for me. Because if anything happens to me today, she's standing. So it is, and I have so many of my friends that have business partners. There are 2 guys. They have some of them that are 4. They run real estate company, 4 of them. And they have access to the account, the 4 of them. And I have another 2. The 2 of them have access to the account. So it's important. The first lesson I want us to learn as property developers, as property owners, and also business generally. Don't do a one-man business. It will not last. It won't last. Now, the second lesson to learn and advise, I want to advise the professional body, for instance. We said it enough. The Korean and ACON and NITP of now, they should set up an enforcement committee, a very rigorous enforcement committee, which we have in Redan. Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, Lagos chapter, we have a very strong enforcement committee. We go everywhere to check our members. So they should have an enforcement committee working with the government. And also, almost finally, my advice for the government, to the governor and everybody listening, come together, form an enforcement team. Not only your enforcement team with LAPSCA or physical planning, no. Professionals. Let them come together. Pull them from Koren, pull them from ACON. bring them from Redan, because without Redan you cannot build anything. These are the people that develops. You cannot rule them out in the development of Lagos. You must bring them in to assist you in only development and also revenue generation. So you put all these people, NNITP, town planner, like 10 or 12 people, man, they help you in monitoring their members. They give you information, you go after them, they help you correct. So the government need to do that now and immediately now.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Bamidele Onolaja, for joining us. Government needs to do a lot. Other stakeholders also have a role to play, so that the kind of tragedy that has occurred with this 21-story building on Gerrard Road, Ikoyi, Lagos, does not happen again. And we hope that that tragedy, in the sense that it is avoidable, will indeed not happen again. We commiserate with all the affected families. There's been a great outpouring of grief out there. And, the elements in terms of how that particular incident touches us as human beings, as members of a global human community, you cannot, in fact, exaggerate it or imagine the extent of it. We are all in pains, we are all aggrieved, but what will happen is how we address this, and we make sure that people do not die needlessly in Nigeria, because every life matters, whether it is the structural engineer that failed, or the developer that failed, or it is government that failed. Nobody should fail in such a manner that lives would be wasted. We are on money. We identify with the families that have been affected and their friends and all the stakeholders involved in this matter. Thank you very much, Dr. Bamidele Onolaja, for joining me this afternoon to reflect on these issues. And I also want to thank all the persons who listened to this edition of the program, who called in, and who also reached out to us on Zoom and Facebook and other social media platforms. Remember, the conversation does not end here. You can still reach out to me, Reuben Abati, on my social media account at Abati1990 on Instagram, and also on City1051 on all social media platforms. For those of you who tuned in late, you don't need to worry. You can visit our YouTube page, City1051, to watch the entire show. And when you do so, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and leave comments. And don't also forget to tune in next week at noon for another exciting edition of City Talks. My name is Reuben Abati. The show was produced by Adedoja Allen, Abiodun Odunton, Ayodamola Oludara, Bello Hakim, and Oluwaseun Adetitun. Thank you very much for listening. We'll join you again next Saturday. Bye for now. Thank you.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.